what do the customers say about your product, and implement that, and don't take that for granted. Take it home and say, okay, well, we're going to have to change something here. Something is not right. Nobody's perfect. We were actually just working for Costco at one point. We're really only working for Costco. By the time I make a shop drawing to the time we have a prototype ready for production, takes 8 months. And you need some tolerance. You cannot make it too tight. If you make wood too tight, it will squeak. But squeakiness, we needed to see that over time. Because wood dries out. It expands and contracts. So we have different seasons in Canada. We have the dry season right now. It's cold outside. We have the heating going. If it's close to a vent, it will dry out. I always liked Japanese style bed frames. Always. They have no metal parts, period. They're very complicated. Some of the joinery is so complicated, you have to be really a master. And they work, those people, they work for years on doing one joint.
Yeah.
Creating one joint takes them years. It takes them literally years to do. That's a dedication.
Carl, thank you for inviting me to your workshop here. It's really cool to see this gigantic factory putting out a ton of wood products. You've got just like tons of wood in the background here. We'll do a tour later on, but why don't we start off with your background in woodworking? I want to hear everything that led up to the founding of Quagga and how you got started.
Yeah. Well, thanks first of all for coming, Kevin. It's great. Pleasure to have you here. And I'm going to start actually way back when I grew up in Germany. So I grew up in Germany, and I was always interested in woodworking. And my opa, he was a woodworker. My dad was not, but I liked what he was doing. He did little train sets in wood, and we would get a train set usually for Christmas. So that was pretty, and I always liked wood. And so when I grew up, I tried different things. You played with Lego and so on, of course, but I was more interested in wood, always have been. And however, I didn't pursue it. I went to university, studied business, and then we decided as a family. In 1982, my dad bought a farm in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we moved with him. However, I'm not a farmer, and I've got another brother. He's not a farmer either, so we decided, okay, we're going to do something different. My dad said, okay, well, I'm going to join you guys. Of course, you have no money. I'm going to join you guys. You're going to need money to do that. So we started out in 1991 in a very little tiny shop, 1,200 square foot shop on Welland Avenue in St. Catharines, to manufacture furniture parts. However, because of the opening of East Germany, it was really busy, and we concentrated rather than on the Canadian market at that point. We started to get contacts or make contacts in Germany. So actually moved there. My parents moved there for 3 or 4 months at a time, and he would drive throughout Germany. I would join him once in a while to visit potential customers, and that worked. That really worked. It was busy. People were buying furniture, and so in 1991 I stayed back in Germany and continued with the customer base. My dad moved back and started that little shop on Welland Avenue in 1991, January of 1991. So I did get married in Germany in 1993 and convinced my now wife to move to Canada. So that was really interesting, because you don't hear much about Canada in Germany. You always hear about the US, of course. So went over to Canada with her. Took a short vacation. I think it was 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and she liked it. And what's not to like about Canada? You know, big country, whereas in Germany it's very, very tiny. You have to pay for everything, for parking, which you do now here too, but not as much as you do in Germany. So we loved it, she loved it, and we said, okay, well, it took 2 years actually to get the papers done. So she had to renew she went through driving school and so on, different things like that. And I worked with the company, with my brother and my dad on Welland Avenue.
Talk to me about those early years. How did you fund the operation? How did you first build up inventory? How did you get your first few sales? Like, I think that's something that all entrepreneurs struggle with in the early days is like, no one knows who you are, no one believes in you, and there's like, you got to get it off the ground somehow.
That's right. So advantage we had, fluent in German, and my dad had a little bit of a background within the furniture industry, not much, but a little bit. Knew some kitchen manufacturers and so on, which we of course went to first. Funding was provided by my dad. So I was 26 at that point. I had no money at all. Finished university, actually had a little bit of debt, and he sold his farm in Lake, which he bought in 1982. And that's how we funded the operation. That's how we bought equipment. That's how we bought inventory. We bought wood, and the orders came in slow. It was a gradual process. It was not easy to convince. So Germany is a very controlled market. There's a couple of buying groups that have all the power, and if you're not in one of those buying groups, you will not get any orders. And we were making furniture parts for the manufacturers, so very specific. Very specific in terms of what we could use. They're very, very environmentally conscious, the German, which taught us from early on, okay, what kind of glue can we use? What kind of wood? Is it FSC approved? Where can we harvest the wood? Where can we buy the wood? And sometimes it was specified by those German manufacturers where we can buy actually the wood. And then we would produce it. We would mainly produce edge glued panels, which I will show you later on. So that means we would create panels and we would shape them with a CNC router. We would do ornaments in some of the doors, maybe wardrobe doors and so on, different things like that. So we would add value to that product. Not a finished product, but we would add value. We would not finish the product. So there would be no finish on the product. And that's how we started really. And we were really busy. So in 1995, we bought this building here on Reed Road, all three of us. And we have approximately 30,000 square feet here. And we basically were able to, with the BDC, Business Development Corporation, helped us with money, with loans and so on. We were able to buy machinery, we were able to buy wood for production and so on, and hire people. So we moved out in 1995 out of the Welland Avenue. It was way too small, and we started actually with 2 shifts here. One shift would be my dad early in the morning, and we would change that, of course, vice versa, and we would stick to second shift. And that's how we started here in this building. So we were really busy. The manufacturers were really busy. Everybody was really busy during that time because of East Germany, 17 million people. They wanted to spend their money, so they were busy within Germany.
Right.
And of course that helped production for us and so on. It was a lot easier. And and so we gradually learned really what to use, and that was really important later on too. Very important to know what to buy, where to buy, environmentally conscious products that we needed for production. So we learned actually from the manufacturers where to buy those products.
Now today on your website you have 3 bed frames. Talk to me about the transition from starting as a furniture parts manufacturer to then producing furniture, which you showed me one of your catalogs earlier. You had dozens of different items, and now you have 3.
Yes.
Talk to me about that transition of like how you decided what to build.
Yeah. So in 1995, we bought this building here. In 1999, the Chinese came in really heavy. They were subsidized, and we believe they were subsidized because the prices we could not match. They were so cheap with their products coming in, with the furniture coming in. And many of the companies, Canadian companies, then moved to the US or they moved overseas. We here at Port Bella Dry Docks, so this is the area, it's called Port Bella Dry Docks. We had, besides us, 2 other manufacturers, smaller ones too, and they decided to quit in 1999, just because we could not compete. What we did, we would produce the furniture parts, and that is crucial. That was really crucial for our survival through those years, 98, 99, 2000, when the Chinese came in really heavy. We were not protected, whereas the US people were protected. And that's why a lot of companies, Canadian companies, moved to the US. For example, bedroom sets. They applied duty for bedroom sets originating from China, going into US, but there was no duty on the Canadian side. And when you're subsidized, of course, you're going to suffer. So we decided, okay, what we're going to do is we had leftover pieces always. We had a lot of leftover pieces. We're going to make that into flooring. And that was the most crucial part of our survival. Using the leftover pieces, we had no leftover pieces at the end because we used them. We would finger joint them and we would shape them into flooring. And that was really how we survived during those years. And then we divided it up. We needed to divide up our company, furniture parts and flooring. So my brother took over the flooring and I continued with furniture, but finished furniture. That meant, okay, I'm going to make furniture that I can give to the end consumer. So we then stayed away from Germany, just because of the pricing issues as well. Really good connections to this day in Germany, but we said, okay, we're going to serve the North American market and preferably Canada. And that's what we've done to this day.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
And so you had a few dozen items, I believe, in this catalog early on.
Yes.
What led you to ultimately decide bed frames were the product that we're selling now?
Yeah, so I like bedroom sets because everybody needs to sleep.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I said to my wife, okay, I'm going to concentrate on beds. I don't sleep enough, but in any event, I like bed frames. And I said, okay, I did, in the beginning, I did custom furniture. People came into our showroom here at Reed Road in St. Catharines, and they would order pieces. And then I made a catalog. Because I've made those pieces before, I thought, okay, you know what? I took pictures of those pieces, delivered it to the people, and those were nice pieces. I thought they were well designed, so I did quite a bit of designing for the people. Sometimes they were really specific, that's a different story, but quite often not. And I would take pictures and I would incorporate that into a catalog. Customers would come into my shop, I could show them a catalog, okay, this is what I've done, and that's how that's how the catalog came into, that's how we made the catalog actually. And that took about 3 years to get enough product into that catalog to print it actually and so on. And so I did that for a number of years, and quite often though the customers would come into the shop and say my bed squeaks. So I said, well, I can give you some linseed oil, that we used for furniture parts before and so on, no problem, but it won't really help if it's metal based, if it's a metal frame or whatever. And I would send them home like that. They said, well, can you build me a new bed? You know, I need to sleep, I can't sleep, it's squeaking, all right. And so then I concentrated on bed frames, and it was ongoing. People came in and said, do your bed squeak? Then I don't want to buy it. I said, no, it does not. And the problem is with the squeaking of beds is when you have metal parts, and this is why Quagga stays away from metal parts. Metal parts become loose over time, and rubbing against wood creates squeaking, or metal against metal will create squeaking as well. And this is one of the things when we design a bed frame, we try to stay away at all costs from metal parts. Number one, it could loosen over time, which it will, because you're using it daily. And number two, it's bad for your landfill. It's really bad for your landfill. So those are the things we look at Quagga, to design something that has no metal parts in it at all. You cannot always get away. For example, our accordion bed has metal parts, and there is really no way to not have metal parts quite often in your bed frames. But when you do have them, make sure that you're not using bolts where they can loosen. Wooden screws can loosen as well, but not as much. So we look at that too. We look at, okay, what kind of metal parts do we have to use here? We have a good design. We want to bring it out onto the market. What can we do with this? We're going to bring out a headboard that has absolutely no metal parts. So in the summer we're going to bring out a headboard. However, the nightstand that we will introduce in about a month and a half has some metal parts, has 4 screws. So that is something that we couldn't get away from. So sometimes that's the case, and that's okay too. But it should be in the back of your mind. Every company should look at that twice and say, okay, we're not using styrofoam for packaging. Why use metal if we don't have to? And that's really important. So
you have 3 different bed frames: the accordion, the No Fuss Plus, and the Tic Tac Toe.
yes.
And the Tic Tac Toe and the No Fuss Plus both don't have metal parts.
Yes.
Which was the first one you built, and can you walk me through the design process of getting that out the door?
Yeah. So the first one was a No Fuss Plus bed. Actually, it was called No Fuss. So we started off in 2001. 2003, sorry. We started to design a no fuss bed that has only slats. I always liked Japanese style bed frames, always. And when we would go to the German furniture shows in Cologne, IMM, in January, I would stand in front of those beds, you know, and I thought, okay, low profile beds, I just love it, close to the ground. I just love it. They use a lot of slats, a combination of different things. But I was intrigued by that. And that is something, so in 2003, we built a no fuss bed. Very simple, a very simple bed, very, very simple. And then we proceeded to, so when we looked at the no fuss bed, we looked at again, what kind of panels do we use? Is there a company out there that has toxin-free glue? And we found Columbia Forest Products, big company here in North America, soy-based glue, no formaldehyde in it at all, none whatsoever, and that's what we were looking for. So we contacted them, of course, and then we got the material in, and we love it to this day. So created in 2003 the no fuss bed, just because the people came in and they were concerned about squeaking. And so there's a lot to the no fuss bed that is not mentioned on our website. But the slats, for example, we flip sideways. So you can load that bed up. So it's a 5x load capacity compared to when you have it flat. The slats are flat. So 5 times as much weight you can now put on your bed frame when you flip the slat sideways. So and we tested that. And during that time, I think 2 years later, before we had the NoFast Plus bed, created in 2006, the second of the NoFast beds, Costco came into the picture and was interested in that. I'll get to that a little bit later on. Anyway, we wanted to create a bed frame. After that, we tried to create a bed frame that a lot of people came to us, wanted to upgrade from queen to king size. Okay, so we wanted to do it expandable. We wanted to make it expandable. And so then one morning, we cut the base in half. So it was a long base, the original NoFast bed. We cut it in half one morning actually, and then we slid it right beside the other base. So we have 2 bases on each side now. So cutting the base in half, now we're able to move it back and forth. And so that we created in 2006, the NoFast Plus bed. So now you could go from queen to king size. Okay, and one of the guys said, okay, well, you know what, it's selling well, but we're missing 2 sizes. We're missing 2 sizes really. And we said, well, how do we do that? And so yeah, in 2009, we created the NoFast Plus. It should have been NoFast Plus Plus. But we said, okay, well, we're missing the single XL and the double XL mattress size. Can we incorporate that in the queen and king size? And so at that point, it was fairly easy to do that. We just added another base, figured out the distance between the slats had to be figured out. So we did that on the computer and did a test mode, and it worked. So now we can cover 4 sizes within one bed frame. So, and that's what we try to achieve. And
all with no screws or fasteners.
No screws or fasteners. However, most of the people wanted the queen king size only. And because it's an upgrade, it's more, we held back with the 4 sizes with that bed frame. And now we decided to bring it back. Now we think it's a time to bring that back, covering 4 mattress sizes. So it's been sitting on the shelf for a number of years.
Yeah.
But the people were happy, and we thought, okay, we have something that we can introduce at a later stage, and now we're doing that. Yeah. So we're actually bringing out the first batch beginning of April. Should be ready. We're working on it right now. The accordion bed also will cover 4 sizes, and both of the batches should be ready first week in April.
Nice.
So
you mentioned you're inspired by some of the Japanese bed frames, and when I look at your bed frames, I see a lot of the similarities between this and some of the Japanese joinery techniques, where they may build an entire structure without using any screws or fasteners.
That's right.
When did you first kind of realize that this was an interesting approach, and are there any other sources of inspiration you've used in assembling these frames?
Yeah, so the Japanese frames are usually, they have no metal parts, period. They're very complicated. Some of the joinery is so complicated when you look it up on Google, it's unbelievable. And that inspired me. That just inspired me when they did that at the shows, when they showed me, wow, or had a video of how they build it. Of course, in production, very difficult to do, but we could incorporate that into the NoFast Plus bed to a certain extent. Very simple. They probably laugh at us. They say, wow, this is very simple. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a joint that works, and it's fairly simple to make. But yeah, some of the Japanese joinery there's 16, 17, 18 steps involved, all handmade.
Right.
And I loved it. And I've tried it. You have to be really a master. And those people, they work for years on doing one joint.
Yeah.
Creating one joint takes them literally years to do. That's a dedication and patience you have to do something like that. And I always like the low profile beds too. I really like the low profile beds, closer to the ground. I know you want storage in your bedroom. Nowadays, real estate is at a premium, and you need to store your stuff, right, somewhere. So our bed frames are 11 and 12 inches tall, which you have 8 or 9 inches under your slats for storage.
Right.
And we find that sufficient. We cannot go higher than 12 inches because of the lateral stability. Not that it will break, but the lateral stability will be compromised if you go any higher than 12 inches. On the cording bed you could. On the tic-tac-toe bed to a certain degree too, but not on the first plus bed.
Yeah.
So,
do you plan on incorporating these principles of joinery into future products and into you mentioned the headboard and things like that?
yes. So the headboard will be a no fuss plus bed basically against the wall.
Cool.
So that's really again, no metal parts. The customer will have to put it into the slats into the base behind it. Of course, it's not a regular base, but it's cut down, of course. But yeah, so we incorporate that. And same with the nightstand. You will see that the nightstands are made out of slats.
Yeah.
So we incorporate that. There, however, we do have metal parts.
Right.
On the nightstand, it has one drawer, and we made that out of pine. We felt pine, but in general, it's made out of slats. So we incorporate that.
Right.
So that is something that fits together, and we love it. The people love it. Why not do it, right?
Yeah.
So
how did you first test and figure out that these bed frames were going to be sturdy enough? Because I mean, you mentioned the 5x improvement in sturdiness from moving the slats on their sides, but it's not a common design. It's pretty unique. I haven't seen any other bed frames quite like this.
Yeah.
So what was that testing process like? How did you figure out how to make this super sturdy and last up over time? Yeah.
So the first model that we had, the no fuss bed, we stood with two guys and we just abused it. That's really how we tested, and we did that here. Actually, in this shop here, we did that in this shop here. So we wanted to see, okay, how do we make it? How do we make it? And yeah, it broke after a while, and we said, okay, we have to take it home. We got to make one or two pieces, one or two beds, make it, take it home for 2 months and test it. How does it feel when you put your mattress on it, and so on. And we did that. Mm-hmm. We did that. There was no rush. There was no rush at all. And we thought, okay, as long as it doesn't squeak, it has to be sturdy enough, of course. Load capacity we can figure out easily. We can put as much weight as we need over there on the slats, and when we see cracks and so on, then we know it's too much weight. But squeakiness, we needed to see that over time, because wood dries out. It expands and contracts. So we have different seasons in Canada. We have the dry season right now. It's cold outside. We have the heating going. If it's close to a vent, it will dry out.
Right.
Do we have squeaking at that point or not? So all these different things had to be taken into consideration. And then we said, okay, we're gonna throw it onto the market. Honestly, we're going to throw it onto the market. We've tested it now for 2 months. We're going to throw it on the market and see what happens when we get into summer or winter, or see how it does. We did all kinds of calculations beforehand, but we thought, okay, we have a product that we can put on the market now, see how it does. And it was good. Yeah. It was really good. Yes, if you put it over a vent, your bed frame, it will dry out it will not squeak, but it will become looser. And you need some tolerance. You cannot make it too tight. If you make wood too tight, it will squeak.
Right.
So you need some tolerance there. And we achieved that now with having 3 bases with the NoFast Plus. It covers 4 mattress sizes. An increase of load capacity. But the mattresses, some mattresses are very heavy. And it has a greater load capacity and therefore withstands more weight. And when you shift around on the bed, there's not the tendency of squeaking anymore. So far we stayed away from having 3 bases on each side. Now we said, okay, now it's time to do that. Mm-hmm. We have to do it, and we want to introduce the other 2 bed mattress sizes as well, the single XL and the double XL, but also more support for the slats. And that's how we did it. We had now enough experience with the tolerances that we could say, okay, it's time to do that.
Do you remember how many prototypes it took in that initial testing phase? You mentioned you were testing this thing for like 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, going back and forth on the design details. I think it'd be interesting to understand, you know, to peel that back and say, what did that design process actually look like the first time you had built this? Mm-hmm. And then as the products have evolved, you've now released 3 different bed frames. What does that design process look like every time you launch a new one?
Yes.
Is it the same process? Do you start from scratch completely, or what is that design process like?
Yeah, so we did a couple of times. We started with an OFAS bed. We started a couple of times from scratch. We did it really low to the ground. We thought more stability, really low to the ground. And as we went higher, the tolerances weren't good, because it was not too loose or whatever. So I think we started with an OFAS bed. I think probably 6 or 7 times over, which is pretty normal actually. The tic-tac-toe bed, I think even more, because we were not sure how we're going to structure the legs. We had only 6 legs in the beginning, then we added, we went to 9, added another 3 in the middle and the center. You're always concerned as a manufacturer not to have too much material. You want to conserve material because of the weight and so on, different things like that. So there needs to be a balance. So we went from 6 legs for the tic-tac-toe bed to 9 legs, and that took us a while because we needed more lateral stability within the entire bed frame, because it was squeaking when we had only six outside legs. Mm. Then we incorporated the center legs in the tic-tac-toe bed. So honestly, that bed was squeaking when we had only 6, but now with 9, with the support in the center, it was okay.
Right.
So and that's how we learned. That's how we learned. Okay, so, and the accordion bed was not too, because it looks like an accordion. We went according to the accordion.
Right.
So you just expand the slats, right? And that was really a no-brainer. And that didn't take us too long, but from beginning to the end, usually takes 6 to 8 months. By the time I make a shop drawing, to the time we have a prototype ready for production, takes 8 months. 6 is a little bit short, but it takes 8 months to do.
How important is the design of this factory in the production of these bed frames? Because everyone talks about design, and when they think of that, they think of the product design. Mm-hmm. But this could be conceived as a meta product. Like it's the product that makes the product, right? Mm-hmm. How do you think about you have 3 factories now? Where do you produce them? What's the process like? Is there a method to the chaos that we see here? Like
yes.
Why do you design it in this particular way?
Yeah. So the factory has to be set up a certain way, because you need, when the material comes in, so we're getting from Columbia Forest Products, we're getting the material in, it needs to be cut. And we want to utilize as much material as we can. We don't want to have any waste. So first of all, we need to cut the material. Then we put it usually on the CNC router, which shapes it, which cuts the little slots for the slats, the cutouts, and then after that we sand. I'll just give you a short rundown. but then we sand, and then we finish. For every production run, so production run is 50 to 100 beds of the no fuss, maybe 25 of the single to double, and then the queen king size or single XL now, the 4 sizes, is another 70 because more people buy those, the queen and king. That's one batch. Then we finish that entire batch, and then we start with another batch. So we don't start one batch and it's halfway done. We start with the accordion bed. We don't do that. We finish that entire batch. So the 100 beds are done, and then we start with the tic-tac-toe, the accordion bed, or whatever we want to do at that point.
Right.
And we keep that. We keep that also when we now introduce in April the nightstand, and then in May or June the headboard. We continue to do that. It has been difficult because of the demand. It has been really difficult to have inventory. We started with a very small shop, and we did not expect the demand.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, we did not expect the demand. We had Costco then coming into the picture. They wanted to try one of our bed frames. They did on their website, and we were actually just working for Costco at one point. We were really only working for Costco because they have huge customer base, and little Quagga was not, and they trust Costco as well. There's a trust there, right? And of course, the marketing is incredible with Costco.
Yeah.
Good company, and we did that for a while. It's a very good company, and a very honest company, we find. And we did that for a while, and we said, okay, well, how can we grow this properly with our brand?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, our brand is out there on the Costco side, but how do we get the customers in? And we did manufacture a little bit different than Costco wanted us to manufacture. And we said, okay, well, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break from Costco because we could not, we wanted direct contact with the customer. We wanted to see, okay, do you like it? Do you really, not leaving a review on the Costco side, but give us the feedback. And that was really, so we had a meeting and we said, okay, well, we need to get closer to the customer. When we design products, we need to know what they think. Is there something wrong? And that's the most important, that's crucial to any company. What do the customers say about your product? And implement that, and don't take that for granted. Take it home and say, okay, well, we're going to have to change something here. Something is not right. Nobody's perfect. So we make mistakes too, and we need to, sometimes we don't see those mistakes. We're so excited to create a bed frame that covers now 4 sizes or 2 sizes or whatever it is. But you forget things. You don't see that until later on.
Yeah.
So, and that is so important. Customer feedback, most important to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we need the customers to survive, but we also need their feedback to make the product better. And
Right.
it can be made better, as we can see with the No Fuss bed over 6 years. We can make the product better.
Right.
If we put our head, if we work together with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we achieve? Of course, not everything can be done according to what people say, but what can we do actually with that, with that knowledge?
What were the big challenges of shifting away from Costco as the primary customer to then having to go out and find customers? Like, you now have to go reach customers directly, and that brings a bunch of challenges, like not only the manufacturing side, but you now have to sell to a bunch of other people, and you need to figure out how to bring them to your store.
Yeah.
What was that process like?
Yeah, so in reality, we had probably half of the sales after we said, okay, we're going to take a break from Costco for now at least. I think 40% sales after that. So now we had capacity.
Yeah.
Now we said, okay, now we can relax a little bit. But then we didn't have enough orders because we tried to satisfy the cost for customers. And that hit us really hard in the beginning. So we did modifications. But now we had capacity. Now we had actually time on our hands. We didn't have to work long hours, regular days now. That gave us time to then modify the products again, make them better. But the process of advertising, so Quagga has not we're not on Google, we don't run Google ads. We hardly do any social media. It's word of mouth.
Yeah.
When you take a look at, I think we spent in all these years, we spent probably $500 on Facebook ads over I don't know how many years.
Right.
A long time. And we did some social media. Of course, we post once in a while, but not too often, unless it's a new product. That's when we post. And we haven't been able to add any products up until this point. And that's why we haven't done the No Fuss Plus bid with the 3 bases on each side. The other model was working fine. We had this, but we figured, okay. We're busy.
Yeah.
We're really busy. So, and that was something that we're looking at it now. Now we have more capacity, especially now coming up now this year. We have more capacity, and that's how we did that. But it was a little bit of a shock.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to come when we said no to Costco, but we needed to do that just for those reasons.
How did you decide when to make updates to your designs? Because you showed me some of your early No Fuss Plus designs, and you made a change 2003, 2006, 2009. When is there a particular timeline that you think a product needs to be updated on, or are these all driven by like new insights or customer demands? Like, what's your process for like how to evolve a product over time?
I think once the product gets boring to us, then we sit down and say, okay, we got to change something. In reality, we have no time frame for that. As I said, why didn't we put out that bed frame before with 3 bases? We could have covered 4 mattress sizes, but we were satisfied at that point. Why didn't we do the same with the accordion bed? We've done it now. Since we did the No Fuss Plus bed, but we have no time frame. In reality, Kevin, we have no time frame. We thought, okay, it's time. People have been asking for a nightstand, so we created a nightstand. Very simple again. We're a simple company, very simple products. Nightstand they've been asking for years. We said, okay, we're going to make a nightstand. We're going to bring it out. So we're going to bring it out sometime in April, probably the end of April. We'll have it on the website before that. It won't be available until we run a batch. As I said, we run 1 batch at a time. Whereas other companies, I totally get that. They run more products through their factories quicker, but I find you have more control. You have more control over the quality. Finish a batch. Finish a batch with those people that you have, and then you start another product. Not like a conveyor belt type system where one person does only this all day long. No, that person might do 3 or 4 different things in our factory. Whereas when you run high production, they do only one thing.
Right.
And we're not like that.
So maybe less efficient, but you get more control over quality.
It's efficient for sure.
Yeah.
So and we're going to change the production will always stay like that, but we're going to change the batch numbers from maybe 100 to 200 bits now. We're not able to do that. So it was a growth process over quite a long time.
Yeah.
When you're growing, it is very difficult to find the right people, to join your team, there's so many variables in that you don't expect either. You have setbacks.
Right.
No matter what. And it's woodworkers, there's woodworkers out there, but there's limited amount of woodworkers out there.
Yeah.
So
what about the materials? I want to talk a bit about that because I see these plywood sheets here and they're quite thick. They're like almost an inch thick, and I think there's 13 different plies in each of the boards. Why use a 13 plywood when maybe you can get away with 8 or 9 or some kind of like smaller number?
Yeah.
Why make them an inch thick? Why? I believe you have some of them that are made of maple.
Yes.
Why choose maple over birch? I'd just love to hear the rationale behind making these decisions when there are other companies out there that are doing it in shortcut ways, and they're making them cheaper and thinner and in less expensive woods.
Yes, and that's correct, Kevin. So we chose 1-inch plywood. So COVID hit in 2019, and we said, okay, well, 1-inch plywood is very difficult to get. Very difficult. It was very difficult. 3/4 inch is more common. So we decided, okay, what are we going to do now? And we like the 1-inch product. However, for example, we added another board to the 2 boards to the No Fuss Plus bed. That's going to be available in 3/4 inch because of the weight. So there's certain variables that we have to take into consideration and say, okay, well, this box is going to be too heavy now. We like the 1-inch material. However, you can also get 13 ply and 3/4 inch. If we can get that, we will take that because it makes the boxes a little bit smaller. It's just as sturdy as a 1-inch material. And we've had that during COVID. If something like that hits, then you have to say, okay, well, what's available at that point? So 3/4 inch was available, and we took that. Was birch available? No. There was a shortage. There was literally a shortage on birch. We could not get birch. We opted for maple because it's close to birch.
Yeah.
So very close to birch. So we make those decisions with the thought behind it that, okay, maybe we can go back to birch. We really like birch. The finish is nice with the linseed oil. We really like it. We like the color of it. Maple is a tighter wood. So a little bit different to apply it on maple, but we just go with the flow really.
Yeah.
What can we get? Because we're not a huge company.
Right.
So we cannot just get a truckload of this, a truckload of that. So what do we do? So and that's how we didn't anticipate that. We'd never gone through COVID. We didn't anticipate a shortage like that. There were so many shortages with everything. But that's how we really decided.
Yeah.
To say, okay, it's going to be maple now. Maybe we can switch back to birch. The customers will be okay. In that scenario. And the 3/4 inch for the No Fuss Plus bed, no problem at all. Customers, it's 13 ply, so it's okay. It's no big deal. 13 ply on 1 inch or 3/4 inch is fine.
So there's a lot of factors to consider, right? There's like you have, when you're picking the material, there's the quality, there's cost, there's the weight consideration, there's durability. Are there any particular metrics or any particular things that you're trying to get out of a particular material choice? Like, are you optimizing for quality or for durability or for any other metric, or what goes on in your mind when you're thinking about like what to optimize for?
Yeah. So in plywood, we like 13 ply. The higher the better.
Okay.
The higher the better for stability, for straightness of the slats, of course. The higher the better, no matter what, and we opt for that. Whether it's more expensive or not, we don't care at that point. We like it. But when you have only one plywood manufacturer, you take all the plywood from the company. What they have is what they have. So they will tell you, okay, well, I don't have maple. Well, now you got to take birch, right?
Right.
So you have no other choice. You can maybe shop around. But what does it say about the glue? What does it say about this and that? Different factors. We like one manufacturer because of the glue. So we're stuck with that manufacturer at that point. So we have no other choice, right? But that's a really good question, Kevin. I think the higher the ply, the more stable it is. So when we use 3/4 inch, 13 ply, super stable, no problem at all. Absolutely no problem at all.
Can you walk me through the process? Because I think a lot of people who have seen plywood at Home Depot have no idea how it got there and have no idea of all the different steps that are involved. Can you kind of walk me through the process of going from like a tree to a finished bed frame? What are all the steps involved? Who's involved? Who takes the pieces of veneer and puts them together and glues them? You know, when they come in, how do you cut them? What kind of machinery are you using for that? And like, what does that actual process look like? Because I think a lot of people assume that it's just someone chops down a tree and then you know someone does a couple cuts and it's now a bed frame.
Yeah. So on the solid, for example, we built a rustic bed. We discontinued that just because we're too busy. We will bring it back eventually because the design is good. We find the design is good, but right now we will not, just because we're overwhelmed. But for that bed, for example, it's all solid wood. So when solid wood is being cut, so you get the tree in, they cut the tree, they dry it, it's kiln dried, 7 to 9%, and then it's being glued together, the little pieces, short pieces, and later on I think we're going to show that, and we have a lot of panels here. You glue the pieces together, that's called edge gluing. So the strips of wood, so they're plain to 3/4 inch, or whatever thickness you want at that point. You can 1 or 1.5 inch, and then you glue the edges together of those panels, however wide you want the panels, and then you trim the panel. That's how you do that. You cut out, first of all, well, once it's kiln dried, you cut out the knots too, of course. You cut out the knots, the imperfections, and then you glue it together. That's done. The clamp carrier on a conveyor belt, it's done by the clamp carrier. And then you sand it, plane it, sand it to your thickness that you want, and then you use it for your furniture. With plywood, rotary cut or sliced. So the tree, they turn the tree and they cut it like that.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Like almost on a lathe or something.
Or almost like a lathe, a big lathe. So, and then those pieces are being dried as well. And that's a process, and then it's being glued together to 4x8 sheets. That's a short explanation of that, but you glue the plywood pieces together, and they're being sanded, and you trim it, and that's basically it.
Right.
That's the plywood.
And then when you're taking these bed frames to send out to a customer, you're also applying some sort of finish at the end to that plywood, correct? Or?
Yes, yeah. So what we use is linseed oil for the finish. So we're looking at same manufacturer in Germany is offering us a polyurethane, a toxin-free polyurethane. We have to take a look at that. We will find out what that is all about. With the linseed oil, one big advantage is that you can fix scratches very easily. You take 220 grit sandpaper, you have a big scratch now on your bed frame, and you just apply linseed oil. You can actually apply boiled linseed oil, available at Home Depot, no problem at all, and it's done. Maybe two coats. You know, you fill the scratch, and that's basically it. So we don't use usually any stains at all on our bed frames. The exception was a rustic bed. The people like the darker brown color, so we did that.
Yeah.
We applied a stain there. That was the only exception. On all other bed frames, nightstands, headboards, we will not put any stain on our products at all. Unless it's solid. We don't like using stain on plywood. So why? Because it doesn't look great. We don't like it so much because of the edges. We have a 13 ply. The edges are exposed sometimes.
And they all have alternating colors.
Alternating colors, and we don't like that.
Yeah.
However, for the rustic bed, that was a different story. It was all solid.
Yeah.
So that was all solid birch. So that was a different story, and we said, okay, we're gonna. And then again, the feedback of the customers. What do you like? Do you like it natural? They like the brown color, a lighter brown color. It was a warm brown color. So we matched that from what we heard from the customers, and yes, they liked it. They liked it.
Now, I have to ask, why build in Canada? Why is this factory? You have 3 factories. They're all located in Ontario. Over the last I don't know, probably over the last 50 years, but over the last few years as well, it seems like most manufacturers are leaving Canada, or they're either built in the U.S. You mentioned a couple that have moved down there,
Yes.
or they've sent their manufacturing overseas. What advantages do you guys get from building in Canada?
Yeah. So I went with my daughter for a couple of weeks. We went to different shops in the States. And we looked at the US as well. Just because when you manufacture in Canada, we ship it directly from Ottawa to the customer in the US, throughout the US. And the advantage is you don't have to cross the border, which is sometimes a hassle. Crossing the border takes more time. The customers want their product quick, and that is one of the issues we've seen over the past couple of years, is that as everybody wants their bed frame yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to do something. So we went actually last year. Beginning of last year, we went out and my daughter and I, and we looked at different manufacturing facilities in Pennsylvania, in Detroit. So we're not completely sure now with this political scenario going on with Trump right now. Don't want to get into that, but we're staying back and we're saying, okay, we're going to see what happens. Canada remains our main market, although I have to say, and to be honest, 50% actually, we touch 50% of exports to the US now of our sales. So we will see what happens now.
Yeah.
In the near future, and we will go from there step by step.
Is there another benefit to like just the production process and the design process and being able to like iterate quickly from having 3 factories all within driving distance that you can kind of like get to? You can see the factory, you can see what's going on. Can you speak to that, how that might differ from, you know, maybe a competitor is making their beds in China, mm-hmm. and they can only visit the factory once a year or once every 6 months.
Yeah.
Are there any other advantages there in having the production very close knit and having that team that can kind of like, you know, produce things?
Yeah, a lot of people say, why don't you go overseas? A lot of people have said that. Even manufacturers that we know from previous years, they've gone overseas and they say, well, Carl, you know, Canada's getting more expensive. The fact is this, that we can make good products here in Canada at a reasonable price. You have to work closely with the manufacturer, just like you mentioned, Kevin. The factories have to be close together, so you have control. I can go there every day. If I need to, I can go there every single day. Whereas if I manufacture in China, I'm not going to go there every day. I'm not going to live in China either.
Right.
Yes, you can employ people, and people have done that. They hire people and so on. But with all the turmoil going on with the containers, I don't see that. I just don't see that. And that's something that we've always manufactured here. We've always manufactured here. Yes, our prices might be a little bit higher than the competitors, but at the end of the day, we provide work for some people. And that goes back into our economy, and that is something that we look at it. We look at it this way, that we're a Canadian company, and in Germany, coming from Germany, having grown up in Germany, there's so many furniture companies in Germany. How do they survive? It's so expensive. I know Canada's getting expensive as well. I'm not saying that, but they survive.
Mm-hmm.
If you support made in Canada, made in Germany, then you will survive. Mm-hmm. If there's no support there, of course not. But you see the people, we struggle with inventory. So the people like it. The people love what we're doing. And we're glad about that. We're happy about that. So they support us. And that's one of those things that we need to realize. Support local businesses. Mm-hmm. Super important. Super important. Otherwise we're not around.
Yeah.
If you don't support us, we're not going to be there tomorrow. So and that is something that I look at and say, okay, we can still do it. Why
Yeah.
not do it here? So
How do you catalyze more people to think that way, and how do you get more people to say, you know what, I will build it in Canada. It might be a little more expensive,
Yeah.
but I think I'll find a market. You know, especially if they've already moved their manufacturing overseas or to the U.S. or elsewhere.
Yeah. So and I should also mention, Kevin, there's some manufacturers that get parts from overseas and they build the furniture here
Right.
in Canada and the US, and we know companies that do that. But I would say 70%, especially one company, 70% they do it here, and they can say it's made in Canada. So I'm not sure what the ratio is there, 30 and 70 or whatever, but they do import a lot of people. So a car might have 20 different countries, parts from 20 different countries.
Right.
I just read that recently, actually. So that is something. Where is it made now? Where is it made now? It gets confusing. But if you get, and this is why I disagree with some of the people saying, is it really made in Canada? If you import the parts from wherever, and and you assemble it here, it's not made in Canada. The parts aren't made in Canada. So there's this dispute going on, I think, between manufacturers who import parts and people like us who do everything in Canada, who buy the material. Now I should say there was a shortage of birch, and then it came from Pennsylvania, from the US.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come from Canada. It came from the US. So is it then really made in Canada? We say yes.
Yeah.
I see the point that people make and say, is that really true then? You get all the parts from Pennsylvania and you say it's made in Canada. But we actually make the product in Canada. We shape it, we work on it, we make it valuable, we make it a bed
Right.
out of rough material that we get. So yeah, I think people if you support Made in Canada, take a close look at what is that company about, and then make a decision upon that.
Is there a big difference in the strength or some of the properties of wood that is grown in different regions? Like if you took maple, and if it happened to be grown in a colder part of Canada or a warmer part of Canada, or even in the U.S. or overseas, do you see that the maple or the birch is actually different?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a difference. There's a difference. So you can get birch from Russia.
Yeah.
It's very cold.
Is that Baltic birch?
Baltic birch.
Okay.
Yeah, Baltic birch, exactly. So Baltic birch is a really, really great product, and a lot of Canadians use it. A lot of Canadians use it. Tight. The colder the we have some rubwood here actually. We're going to show that later on. But
Yeah.
the colder the temperatures are, where the wood is growing, where the trees are growing, the tighter the rings, the wood rings. And it's Baltic birch, for example. In my opinion, that is the best birch you can get. And it comes from Russia. So yeah, and again, we don't buy it. We just don't buy it because of the glue and so on, different things that we consider more important. But it's a really, really good product, and its strength is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's very tight. It's a very tight wood. Yes. Climate, tropical wood. There's some tropical wood that it doesn't even float. That does not float in water. It sinks. Super hard. I'm not sure about tropical wood. I know our wood here, Quebec, birch and maple. Quebec, very cold, and great product. And that's what we like to use. That's
Yeah.
what we like to use. But you're right, strength in colder climates is being achieved by growing in colder climates. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to finish this conversation off by just asking, what are some of the extraordinary products in your life? Anything that you particularly find to be useful? It could be anything. It could be your coffee maker or your pencil you use every morning, but that's something that we like to talk about on this channel is like extraordinary products. Your bed frames certainly qualify, and I think they're extraordinary. What do you think is extraordinary?
So products. There's one product I really liked or like is Vessi, a company in BC. They brought out a shoe that was completely water resistant.
Okay.
Completely. I mean, you can step into water with their shoes and you won't get wet feet.
Huh.
And I really, really like that product. And that's why I'm promoting it here too.
Yeah.
Really love that product. Not cheap, but I think it's made in Taiwan.
Okay.
And at least, yeah, it's made in Taiwan still. And good quality. Canadian people. And I just love that company because they created something they created that wasn't really out there. And bigger companies of course followed that, but it was amazing because you could step into water and I just wouldn't get wet feet.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. I thought, wow, this is great. This is something that I really, really love. Something different. Again, different, right? And yeah, sometimes you come across these, but that one I really liked.
Yeah.
That's really something that I thought, okay, well, these three people, they did an amazing job.
Awesome.
So
I'll have to check them out.
yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time today, and
Thank you,
keep up the great work.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.